love musicals, and today I'm here with part 1 in a series that is going over some theater vocab words. Now, I've done theater for a long time, and I've slowly picked up on a lot of the terminology that they use in the theater, but I feel like every time I go to a new class or do a new show, I'm still learning new theater terms. And so this video is going to be the first in the series. It's going to just go over what I feel like is some basic theater terminology if you're just getting into theater, or if it's been a while so you want a refresher on some of the basics. This will be a great video for you. As we get further into this series, I'm going to kind of amp it up, get into more advanced theater terminology, as well as some theater building terminology and some jobs within the theater industry that you may come across people who are like, oh, I do this, and then you'll know what that is. So I hope that these videos are helpful, and yeah, let's get into the first vocab term. So the first term that we're going to talk about, and probably one of the most important terms in all of theater, is stage directions. So stage directions are important, but also important to learn about because they're kind of tricky. So I'll have a diagram up on the screen to help illustrate this. But basically, as you get further towards the back of the theater or further away from the audience, you're going further upstage. And as you go further towards the audience, you're getting downstage. And then the area kind of in between upstage and downstage is center stage for obvious reasons. And you can remember why it's called upstage and downstage because in the olden days, before the seats in the theater would be tilted upwards, they had the seats flat and the stage would be tilted upwards, so that the area closest to the audience would actually be further down than the area furthest away from the audience. And so now stages are mostly flat, but they kept the name downstage and upstage. Then the sides of the stage, the left and right are left and right from the actor's point of view. So if you're acting on a stage and the director says, go stage left or go stage right, then it'll make sense to you. But if you're directing a show, then you have to learn to kind of flip things around in your brain so that you can tell the actors to go left when it's their left, not your left. So traditionally, the stage is split up into these 9 squares. So the very center being center stage, and then going out or up or down from there. The next theater term that we're going to be going over is cheat out. Now this one sounds a little funky, but this is one that you definitely need to know because it gets used all the time. You'll always hear your director going, cheat out, cheat out. And to cheat out basically means to face the audience a little more. So when we're having regular conversations with people, we face them side to side like this. But you notice that when I'm facing side to side like this, like there's a person right here, you can't see most of my face and you can't see my mouth very well, and that's the part that the words are coming out of. And so it's important to be able to see your mouth, and also if you're facing the audience, then your sound will go towards them a lot better. The director will ask you to cheat out, which means to basically cheat the way a conversation actually works in real life. So instead of having a conversation with someone who's right here like this, I'll have it kind of like this. So I'm kind of faced towards them, but kind of faced towards the audience. So my sound and my face are still going out towards the audience, but it's not completely unrealistic that I'm talking to the person over here. Now, as I was talking about cheating out, I mentioned that you want to have your face out towards the audience so they can hear you. And there's a term for speaking loud to make the audience hear you, and that is projection. The director will frequently ask you to project a little more if you're being too quiet, and that just means to talk a little louder. It doesn't mean you need to try and yell or anything like that, but just try to amp up the volume a little bit. Along with projection, you want to make sure that you are enunciating. Now, when you're in a face-to-face conversation with just 1 or 2 people, it's okay to not form your words the most clearly, but when you're speaking out to a room filled with people, all the people are really going to soak up all the sound, and your diction needs to be really good. And so if I'm just talking to you like this, we're probably just talking like this, but if I'm saying these words to an auditorium full of people, you better believe my diction is going to be impeccable, or at least I'm gonna try to make it that way. One thing that you need to be careful of when you are on stage with other actors is to not upstage anyone. So now that we know what the word upstage means from our little stage diagram, you can imagine that upstaging someone means that you're standing kind of behind them or further away from the audience than they are. And that means that when they're talking to you, it's impossible for them to cheat out, because to be even remotely realistically talking to you, they have to turn completely away from the audience. And thus, you're upstaging them. You're making it more about you than it is about them, even though they're the one that's talking. And so make sure that whenever you are talking to someone on stage and having a conversation, that you're level with them, on the same plane with them on the stage, unless the director gives you blocking that tells otherwise. Speaking of which, what is blocking? See that smooth transition there? But blocking is just the movements that we do on stage. And so if your director says that we're having a blocking rehearsal today, that means that they're going to be going scene by scene, talking about where your movements are at each point in the scene. And you're going to be wanting to mark your blocking in your script as you go along so you don't forget it, because your director will expect you to remember this. And make sure you practice your blocking at home as well so that it gets really into your brain so it feels natural for your character. The next theater term is thank you blank. So this is used whenever you're a director or just someone who is giving an instruction. So it could be the stage manager, it could even be another actor just trying to help out. If they say something, they give you an instruction, then you're going to respond with thank you and then basically repeat back whatever it is that they just said to you. And so if the director says, hey, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, then you will say thank you, 5. And so that is to let them know that you heard them, and so you're thanking them for the information, and then you're gonna repeat it back so that they know that you understood what you just told them. And whenever you come into a new theater group, you'll want to kind of feel out how they use this term. Pretty much every theater group I've ever worked with has used thank you, but some use it more than others. So most theater groups I've worked with just use it for when they're taking breaks or things like that. So they'll say thank you 5, thank you 10, or some theater groups will say we're coming back at 9:22, so you'll say thank you 9:22. Other theater groups use it for everything you could possibly imagine. And so someone will say, all right, we're at Places, and they'll say thank you Places, and someone will say, I've got the watering can, and they'll say thank you watering can. And so some people just use it for everything. And so whenever you come into a new group, you'll want to kind of feel out how they do things and make sure that you're using it as much, if not more, than everyone else does, because it's just a very respectful, polite thing to do, and it'll make people really appreciate you and your work ethic. So I just mentioned the word places. So if someone calls places, and that will generally be your stage manager if it's during a performance, or your director or choreographer if it's during a rehearsal. But places basically means that you're going to go to your place for the beginning of whatever you're working on. So if someone says places right before a show is about to start, then you'll go to the place where you start the performance at. If someone says places just for a particular scene or a dance number, then you'll just want to go to your place for the beginning of that scene or dance number. So the next term that we're going to talk about has 2 different meanings within the theater world, and you'll generally be able to figure out from context clues which version people mean, but I'm going to go over both of them today. So the word is mark, M-A-R-K. The first meaning of this word in the theater world is that you're going to kind of not do something all the way. So people will say, we're gonna mark this dance number, like we're not gonna go full out, or I'm gonna mark this song because my voice is getting kind of tired and I don't wanna stress it out too much. The second way that this word is used is people will say, go to your mark. So that is very similar to places, which we just discussed. But this will be specifically when your place on the stage has an actual mark, like made of tape or something. This is mainly used for dance numbers when there's a lot of complex configurations. The choreographer will put tape down on the floor of the stage or rehearsal space to help you remember where in this complex configuration you are. And so if you're working on that song and the choreographer says, hey, go to your mark, then that means you go to your little piece of tape. Speaking of tape on the stage, your dance marks are not going to be the only pieces of tape on the stage. There are going to be tons of what we call spike marks. Now, spike marks are generally used to mark where a set piece or a piece of furniture or a prop will go on the stage. This tape is usually in bright colors. Neon green, pink, yellow are the common ones that you usually see. The sets are usually being moved on and off in the dark, and so these bright colors are helpful for the people moving them to see exactly where the couch or the flat is supposed to go. So I just mentioned props and sets. So sets are generally the background that you see on the stage. So if there's trees painted in the back or a living room or something like that, that counts as sets. And then in general, furniture pieces will count as sets. So if you have a couch or a dresser or something like that, that is also classified as a set, and it just helps identify the setting of where your scene is taking place. The other thing I mentioned is props, which is short for properties. Props are basically an extension of the set, but props are specifically the pieces of the set that the actors use. And so there may be a frying pan on the stove, and the stove is a set piece, but if the actor picks up the frying pan, then the frying pan is a prop. And so the props are all of the little things that the actors hold and carry and that help make this set a fully realized, real-seeming picture. Sometimes as you get later on into the process of a show, as you're working with the lighting crew, they will tell you to find your light. And what that means is that you're probably standing a little ways out of the light that they set for you, and you're kind of in the darkness, and obviously their job is to light you. So they're asking you to move around a little bit one way or the other so that you can get into the light that they've set for you. And generally you can find your light by just feeling the light or the heat of the light on your face. So even if you can't look around and see exactly where the light is, if you know you're close to it, just kind of move around until you feel that heat or that light on your face and you know that you have found your light. Okay, the next term is a triple threat. And this is specifically a musical theater term. And so the 3 in the triple is acting, singing, and dancing. And these things are all combined into a triple threat. Basically what that means is if you can act, if you can sing, and if you can dance, then you are a triple threat. That means you're unstoppable. I mean, not quite unstoppable, but that means you basically have the 3 main things that you need to succeed in the musical theater world, and you're pretty cool. I feel like generally I'm pretty well-spoken, and then sometimes it's just remember I'm a dork.
I feel like you should leave that in the video.
What?
You should leave that in the video that you just said.
Yeah, that's probably true. If it's not too long, I will, yeah. Okay, our next term is a matinee. Now this may be a term that you've heard if you go to the movies a lot. You know that for a matinee, which is a morning or afternoon performance, tickets are usually a little bit cheaper, and the same is generally true of theater. A matinee is a performance that takes place generally in the afternoon, though sometimes in the morning. Tickets are sometimes a little bit cheaper, and they use the name matinee to kind of distinguish it between evening performances. This next term is Tech Week, commonly and lovingly referred to as Hell Week. And Tech Week is generally the week or sometimes 2 weeks before the performances start, where you actually move into the actual theater space and you're working with sound and costumes and lighting and all of those good things. This is a process that is generally long and kind of arduous, hence why it has earned the name Hell Week. This is a time that is really fun because you're finally getting to really prepare your show for an audience and get to see what it looks like fully realized, but it's also probably a time where you won't get much sleep, and if it's a musical, you'll want to drink a lot of tea to keep your voice safe. Alright, and we are on to our last term for the video, and that is break a leg. Break a leg means good luck in the theater world. In theater canon, well not canon, but in
lore?
Yeah, in the theater lore, it's actually bad luck to tell someone good luck right before they go on stage. And so we say break a leg. And this term didn't make sense to me for a long time, but it was finally explained to me a couple of years ago. And basically what it refers to is in the olden days when they would have curtains that raised and lowered, they didn't just have nice mechanical systems to raise and lower them, and so they would have this beam called a leg that they would use to raise and lower it. And at the end of the show, there can sometimes be what's called an encore, which is when the audience cheers for more. And basically, if you had so many encores that they would have to keep raising and lowering and raising and lowering and raising and lowering the curtain, sometimes the beam that they were using, the leg, would break. And so basically when someone is saying break a leg, they're saying, I hope that you get so many encores that the theater can't even take it. Alright, so that is the end of the first installment of our theater vocab video series. If you have any terms that you would like explained, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I have a long list of ones that I'm hoping to go over in future videos, but please comment down below if you feel like there are ones that I missed or that you'd like to see me cover in the future. And yeah, give this video a like and subscribe if you're into videos like this and if you want to see more theater related content. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed and have a great day. Bye bye.